The border is closed. Airplanes circle in the sky. Troops are brought to combat readiness. Europe is on edge again, and it seems another round of escalation is inevitable. This time, Poland, Belarus, and Russia are at the center of a confrontation that has long since gone beyond diplomatic statements. Poland takes a step that instantly strikes the entire logistics system of the region. It closes border checkpoints with Belarus. The official reason sounds clear and tough: a threat to national security. But in essence, it's a signal. There is no more usual movement at the border. Trucks stand in endless lines, lorries with food, equipment, and raw materials idle for days, and drivers have no idea when they will be allowed to pass. The situation is worsened by new threats. In Lublin, Polish authorities resort to extreme measures. The airport is temporarily shut down due to alarming reports of possible drone attacks. Picture the scene. Passengers ready to leave for business trips or vacations suddenly face cancellations. Planes remain grounded, schedules collapse, and the tense atmosphere only fuels rumors. If the airport is closed, then the threat must be real, people think. Meanwhile, the media shows footage from Belarus, large-scale military exercises with Russia, tank columns, combat helicopters, artillery crews, military trucks moving right up to the NATO line. This is no longer just a training scenario, it's a demonstration of strength. NATO responds in kind. New units are redeployed to the eastern flank, air defense is reinforced, and commanders in closed headquarters discuss contingency plans in case something goes wrong. The tension grows. Journalists and analysts compare the situation to the Cold War, only in a new digital guise. Back then, the world was divided into two blocks and lived in constant fear of nuclear confrontation. Today, drones, cyber attacks, and instant financial market reactions have been added. And here comes the moment that is crucial to understand. Everything happening in politics and at the borders instantly turns into economics. A closed border is not just a headline for TV channels, it's a blow to everyone's wallet. From the truck driver losing income due to downtime, to a family in Berlin or Warsaw who will see higher prices for food and fuel within weeks. From investors in New York shifting money into gold and dollars, to ordinary residents of Kaliningrad who risk being cut off from basic goods. We live in an era when any border decision immediately affects stock prices, exchange rates, and utility bills. Today's escalation is not only about military columns and closed airports. It is a warning that the economy is once again a hostage of geopolitics. Poland has done what many feared: abruptly shut border checkpoints with Belarus. Officially, the decision was justified as a response to security threats, claims that sabotage groups could cross, and that risks of destabilization in border areas were rising. But behind these dry words lies a much harsher reality. The border between Poland and Belarus is not just barriers, guards, and road signs. It is a vital route for massive flows of goods moving both ways. Food, construction materials, equipment, chemicals, everyday products, tens of thousands of trucks crossed monthly. When the barriers came down, it struck not only Belarus and Russia, but also Europe itself. In the first days after closure, roads filled with trucks. Tens of kilometers of queues, drivers living in their cabins, unsure when they would be allowed through. Social media filled with photos and videos, endless convoys of lorries standing in snow and rain, while comment sections erupted. Why should I wait a week if I have a contract? Who will pay for the losses? On top of that came the second news that deepened the anxiety. Lublin's airport was temporarily closed. The reason? Suspicion of possible drone attacks. This is the new reality. If in the past the threat was terrorists or armed groups, now drones alone can paralyze a strategic facility. Just a few reports of possible drones and an airport shuts down. Imagine the passengers, some rushing to business meetings, some visiting relatives, some heading on vacation. All of them stranded in waiting halls with luggage, no flights, and no answers. People fume, demand compensation, but everyone has the same question in mind. What's next? If drones can close Lublin's airport today, tomorrow it could be Warsaw, Gdansk, or Krakow. Meanwhile, Belarusian media broadcast images of joint drills with Russia. Tanks rumble across the training grounds, fighter jets take off, missile systems are deployed. All this right next to NATO's borders. This isn't defensive preparation, it's a political message. We are ready. NATO, of course, is not silent. Statements quickly follow, promising to strengthen the eastern flank. New units arrive in Poland and the Baltics. Air defense batteries are deployed. Reconnaissance planes fly non-stop. The atmosphere becomes increasingly explosive. Every step by one side automatically provokes the other. Border closed, military drills in response, drills held, NATO redeploys troops. Airport shut. Somewhere in a NATO HQ, new plans are drawn for tighter airspace control. It's like dominoes. One action triggers dozens more and stopping the process is impossible. But these are not just dramatic images for the news cycle. They're real chains of consequences that directly hit the economy. A closed border and disrupted logistics cost businesses money. A closed airport hits companies and passengers. Military exercises trigger oil and gas prices to rise. Every political or military move instantly impacts the wallets of millions. When borders close, the effects are immediate. For politics, it may be a tough response to a threat. For businesses and ordinary people, it's a chain reaction hitting the most sensitive spots. The first to suffer, logistics. Transport across the Polish-Belarusian border was a key route for trucks moving between Russia, Belarus, and Europe. Now that artery is blocked. Trucks are stuck in queues and parking lots. Drivers spend days and nights in their cabins. Contracts collapse, deadlines are missed. Alternatives exist but are longer and more expensive. Cargo flows must reroute via Latvia, Lithuania, or southern corridors, through Ukraine or Turkey, but each detour adds kilometers, fuel, and costs. If delivery once took 2 days, it might now take a week. Logistics companies raise tariffs, and shipping prices climb. That hits end products. Food, construction materials, electronics, everything becomes pricier. In Europe, where inflation is already painful, this adds a new wave of tension. In Belarus and Russia, prices rise even faster as imports shrink and domestic markets come under pressure. The second factor, energy. Even rumors of blockades on gas or oil routes immediately push prices up. Energy markets live not on facts, but expectations. If there's even a chance a border crisis will disrupt flows, futures surge. That's exactly what's happening. Reports of border closures and drills push oil and gas prices higher. For EU countries, it means more expensive electricity and heating bills. For Russia, it's a short-term gain from higher prices, but long-term pain as regular export channels are restricted and new sanctions loom. The third aspect, investors. Markets hate uncertainty. When borders close and military columns head toward NATO, uncertainty turns into panic. Investors flee risky assets, sell stocks, and withdraw capital from regions at risk of conflict. And where does this money go? The classics. Safe havens. Gold, the dollar, US treasuries. Gold is already rising. The dollar strengthens against the euro, which hurts Europe's economy again. It's a vicious circle. Politics trigger fear. Fear drives prices up. Prices fuel public anger. Social media fills with posts. Why must we pay for someone else's geopolitics? Poles complain about queues and expensive food. Belarusians blame Warsaw for closing the border. Russians lament rising prices and shortages. Each side has its story, but the outcome is the same. Economies buckle under pressure. Analysts call it the geopolitical risk premium, a term investors use when conflict forces extra costs into prices. And today that premium is ballooning. Every barrel of oil, every cubic meter of gas, every shipping container carries not only its cost, but also a fierce surcharge. Thus, the border closure is not just a technical step, but a triple blow. Logistics stall, transport costs rise, energy markets shake, fuel prices climb, investors flee to safety, draining capital. All this from a single political decision. On the map of Europe lies a small piece of land many view as Russia's outpost in NATO's heart, Kaliningrad, a tiny region with massive strategic weight. Poland on one side, Lithuania on the other, the Baltic Sea ahead. Geographic isolation that in peacetime looks exotic, in crises becomes a trap. When Poland closes checkpoints and Lithuania tightens transit, Kaliningrad is squeezed. Land routes are cut off by sanctions and politics. The only supply line, the sea. Moscow must ship goods across the Baltic, but that's costly, complex, and unsafe. Sea logistics aren't just load and go. It's port schedules, weather, added costs for fuel and security. And the Baltic is already contested. NATO planes patrol, alliance ships drill, submarines linger near Russian waters. In this climate, even a container ship becomes a target or subject to checks. Inside Kaliningrad, it's felt sharply. Prices for food and essentials rise. Logistics firms warn. Delivery costs more, so everything costs more. Stores aren't empty, but assortments shrink and prices climb. This isn't abstract risk premiums anymore. It's daily life. Politically, Kaliningrad is Moscow's symbol of power. The Baltic Fleet is based here. Missiles that can reach any European capital are stationed here. Yet it's also a vulnerability. Without reliable transit, the region is hostage to neighbors' decisions, and those neighbors act in concert with Brussels and Washington. Local officials try to reassure. They claim everything is under control, that sea routes are working, that shortages won't happen. But people remember past crises, shelves emptying, queues for fuel and materials, even talk of rationing. Kaliningrad today is a litmus test for the whole situation. If shortages appear, Russia's detours aren't working. If prices rise, sanctions and closures are biting. And if things ease, it shows Moscow still manages. For NATO and the EU, Kaliningrad is both a threat and a weakness. A Russian pistol at Europe's head and a lever to pressure Moscow. That's why sanctions and transit restrictions targeting Kaliningrad sting so much in the Kremlin. Economists calculate supplying Kaliningrad by sea costs Russia several times more than land transit. Billions in extra spending drain the budget and businesses, and with the economy already under strain, each new shipment is a reminder of both resilience and fragility. Kaliningrad is Russia's Achilles heel, a fortress on the outside, a fragile economic model inside, a place where power and dependence collide. And that's why every escalation on Poland's and Belarus's borders instantly puts this region at the center of the global game. It may seem all this is far away. Poland, Belarus, Kaliningrad, borders, drills, planes, drones. But the reality is, each of these events hits everyone's wallet. From Berlin to Moscow, Warsaw to Brussels. Border closures aren't just barriers, they're supermarket price hikes. If truckers pay more and spend weeks instead of days, bread, meat, electronics and medicine get pricier. Shoppers see it at the checkout before the next newscast. Rumors of blockades aren't abstract, they're higher utility bills. A whisper of risky corridor or drills near pipelines on exchanges and prices jump. Households pay more, governments spend billions more. Kaliningrad shows how local weakness becomes global pressure. For Moscow, a military outpost. For neighbors, a vulnerable flank. For locals, rising costs and shortages. Each ship leaving St. Petersburg for Kaliningrad is not just transport, but a costly compromise between geopolitics and reality. Investors react their way. They run to gold and dollars. For them, safety from the storm. For economies, capital flight, weaker currencies, tougher credit. Money meant for schools, roads, hospitals instead plugs crises and fights inflation. Each new step is escalation. And escalation today doesn't look like explosions or missile salvos. It's in price tags, exchange rates, unemployment, and market panic. It's in postponed purchases, cancelled investments, governments printing billions more. Politics and economics are now fused. Poland shuts a border, and it's not a local move, it's a chain reaction. Russia and Belarus drill and oil and gas prices surge. NATO boosts its flank, and it's not just tanks, it's dollars in gold, millions fleeing Europe. In the end, the formula is simple. Escalation, a hit to everyone's wallet. In Warsaw, Moscow, Berlin, Paris, London. Even if you don't watch the news, don't care about politics. Tomorrow you'll feel it in the grocery bill, the utility statement, the exchange rate. When politicians and generals play their grand chess match on Europe's borders, the real cost falls not on them, but on ordinary people. And the longer this crisis lasts, the higher the price of every move, and the greater the fear. Where will the next strike land?